Hey everybody, welcome back to the About the Fans post-game show. We just watched Miami versus Duke. Uh, Miami wins 53 to 31. It was a 19 and a half point spread, so we cover by 2.5 points. As always, I'm here with Petrie. Petrie, how you doing, man?
Hey, dude, I'm doing really well. I love those kinds of games where we do end up covering the spread. A lot of people get scared when they see big spreads because they think it's a setup for either a loss or maybe like one of those kind of embarrassing wins where you're favored by 3 touchdowns and then you only win by a field goal or somehow manage to escape late at the end. So very nice when you have a big spread against a conference opponent and still cover it. So ESPN had us at minus 19 and a half at kickoff, and we ended up winning by 22. So very nice that we got the cover by a full 2 points.
Yeah, absolutely. It was kind of an interesting game in terms of flow. We started out pretty hot, pretty fast, which Cam has been doing that lately. It seems like he is just money on the first drive or two of each game, and then we kind of go into a lull. Duke came kind of roaring back. I think we were up 14-0, went into halftime 21-17. They score on the first possession. Extended their lead to 28-17 right after halftime. And after that part, so this was an interesting stat. So last 22 minutes of gameplay, about 7 minutes left in the third, we were 36-3 after that point. So all Miami after halfway through the third quarter.
Yeah, I like what you mentioned about the game flow, the word flow specifically. Obviously, start off with a 14-0 run, then they go on a 17-3 run, and then we, of course, as you mentioned, kind of end up closing the stretch of the game 36-3. Definitely a game where the flow was a little bit weird. The thing, and I mentioned this during the game, it is so frustrating. It almost seems like they're trying to win a full 60 minutes of football on every single play. It drives me up a wall when they do that sometimes because yes, I know that you want to have style points. I know you want to win and look good. It's great. I appreciate that you guys are really trying to seriously win by a lot, but you also need to have more realistic expectations to balance that as well. You are not going to throw a deep touchdown on every single play. It's not going to happen. The defense is not going to force a fumble or an interception on every play. It's not going to happen. You need to play smarter and more focused, and then you let your talent simply overwhelm the other team.
Yeah. Which, I think so kind of weaving in some threads from the last 4 5 weeks that we've been doing this. And that is kind of the offense that is sporadic. Sometimes we are red hot, sometimes we are asleep. And I think that was a recurring theme today. I think uh, the secondary. I actually thought the secondary played well to start the game, and then it got absolutely torched for about 2 quarters, and then it turned up the heat, and it actually played pretty well in my opinion. But there was that glaring 2.5 quarters. Um, Let me see exactly how many yards that Malik Murphy threw for. 325 yards, and that came on 25 completions. So lots of big chunk plays in there. I believe he had 4 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns. So secondary, little bit faulty for part of the game. Um, and these are recurring themes. I think this is just kind of what this Miami Hurricanes team is, right? But as you pointed out, you want your team to kind of become overwhelming as the game progresses, and I actually think that is what we saw today, which is a very good thing. I think it shows that we have depth. It shows that we have resiliency, and good coaching adjustments. Which you brought up a point about that later. I'll let you get to that in terms of adjustments. Um, but that is nice to see, right? It's nice to see that a team who, like Duke, they're upstart, they're having a nice season. Um, they can't hang with us for 60 minutes. They can hang with us for about 40 minutes, but that last 20 minutes of gameplay, they can't they just can't keep up, right? That's a great sign.
And that is correct. As I mentioned, we got to let the talent overwhelm, play focused, play sharp, because as nice as it is to score 50 and cover a 3 touchdown spread, you also have to recognize the opportunities where it could have and arguably should have been worse. We score the first 2 drives in a row, then don't have any touchdowns for, a good little stretch of the game when Duke starts to kind of take control of the game, and then down the stretch they score touchdowns on like 4 out of the last 5 or 6 drives or something along those lines, whatever the numbers, I didn't look it up. So very streaky. And regarding the adjustments, that is correct too. The defense, it's great that the coaches on the defensive side of the ball can see what is not working and apply the necessary corrections. That's terrific. But sometimes it would be nice if they would just already have it before the game. It would be nice to not have to think, oh, wow, we're going to need Cam in the offense to save us. And more so just think, hey, wow, we're playing complimentary football for a full 60 minutes. Because just like how that ended up being 53-31, it could have just as easily been somewhere along the lines of like 60-20, give or take, So it really could have been much worse if they played more focused and didn't wait as long to figure out and make those adjustments.
Yeah, I'm with you. I can't help but think that Mario's going to have an honest conversation with himself, maybe the conversations with Lance Guidry. But the defense has just not really been up to snuff in terms of scheme adjustments, all that stuff. I mean, I'm glad that we're undefeated. I think that is of note. Um, I am probably more guilty of this than a majority of the fan base, but at least if you take the temperature on Twitter, I think a lot of people in the fan base are treating this team like it's not undefeated, probably because of how the last 4 or 5 weeks have gone. At the end of the day, though, there is a certain level of resiliency that it takes to continue to win these close, tough battles. Even if you're in a tough battle, if you're in a close game because of your own mistakes, your own negligence, your own lack of discipline, I think the fact that you end up on top every week means something. So, kind of good and bad there with the defense. But I mean, it really is. It's a gaping hole in our overall team outlook for the rest of the season.
It's definitely nice to end up on the winning side of the scoreboard, as you mentioned. And of course, we're 9-0. But, and this is one of the most annoying expressions in all of football, not just football, but all of sports. They say you are what your record says you are. And that is just not accurate. That is just such a black and white, zero context statement. And you are not simply what your record says you are, because, yes, we are 9-0. And it's great that we're not losing these games. It's nice, but it can be an issue against the truly elite teams. Gabby Urrutia for 24/7 Sports had posted a stat during the game that Duke had not scored more than 20 points in regulation against an ACC opponent yet this season. Okay. They had 28 on us right at the start of the third quarter. Obviously, they ended up finishing the game with 31. So they
Yeah.
set their ACC, mark for the season by 11 points today on us, a team that is top 5 and is supposed to have genuine CFP aspirations. Regrettably, that's not going to work against a team like Georgia, against a team like Ohio State, even Alabama, who seems to have fallen off. It ain't going to work against a team that is very, very good and has genuine talent throughout with depth.
Yeah. Well, I want to point out that, they set their mark with 31 points and they had 4 turnovers today. So, if they play a cleaner game, they could have well been over 40 points.
Yeah.
Even if only 3 of those turnovers become field goals, they're at 40 points, right? And you mentioned some of the big dogs this season: Oregon, Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia. I'm worried about a team even like Clemson, to be honest. We have to go through Clemson before we get to the playoffs, right? If we're undefeated and we lose to Clemson, we still might make the playoffs. However, we have to go through Clemson regardless. I'm worried what that's going to look like at this point. I think we'd have a decent shot. I think we're a very talented team. I think we have the best player in college football in Cam Ward. However, with a defense that just gives up points like it's going out of style, that's really tough when you have a team who's been there before, let's say a program who's been there before, a coach who's been there before, and highly rated recruits, highly successful players across the board in a team like Clemson.
Yeah, and that's completely fair. I think we touched on this either last show, it might have been the one before it. But if we do end up meeting Clemson in the ACC championship game, which first things first, we can't necessarily take that for granted either. It might not be Clemson, and it also might not be Miami, depending on how some of these tiebreaker rules go. But if we do hypothetically meet Clemson in the ACC championship game, I'm not positive that we would be favored in that game.
Yeah.
So it is what it is right now. Like we're saying, is it nice to be able to come on here and talk about the team after a win? Of course it is. It's definitely nice. But you do have a certain feeling that, wow, 31 to Duke, and they could have easily had more points than that. I'm supposed to feel great about that? I don't know. I'm not sure I'm supposed to feel great. I feel fantastic about the offense. But again, the defense, that's not going to work against the truly great teams. They will score more than Duke did in the first half. And also, the adjustments are not necessarily going to be successful against a genuinely elite team.
Yeah. So there's a few.
I don't want to be all doom and gloom. We should probably talk about some of the positive stuff. A couple of very, very cool things did happen today. Cam Ward did throw 5 touchdowns. We did try to go for the record there at the end. It looked like it did result in a fumble, so that's unfortunate. But 5 touchdowns is no light accomplishment. That's awesome, including the fact that Restrepo is now the all-time leader for the University of Miami in catches and in yards. I also don't have the figure right in front of me, but it seems likely that he's going to get the touchdowns record too. We are out now at 9 games, so we have 3 left, including whatever ends up happening in the postseason, and I think he only needs like 3 more.
Yeah. Yeah, man, and what an amazing play for it to happen. I had to send that highlight out to all my friends who, because of me, they cheer for Miami, not necessarily Canes fans themselves. But, I made my wife come into the room and watch the replay. Like, what obviously a special moment that he captured the record anyway, but for it to happen on a play that just kind of shows his excellence, both in the route running, his awareness with the ball, and then being able to finish after the catch and, take it to the house. I think it was 66 yards, maybe 68 yards. Just what a special play. They showed his mom in the stands crying tears of joy, rightfully extremely proud of her son, who is an absolute Cane legend. I'm going to be putting in some work on Twitter, trying to normalize calling him one of the greatest Hurricanes to ever play football at this program. I think that is very fair to say at this point.
100% valid, and it is true. And a lot of times people want to get bogged down on when someone says like the greatest receiver in Miami history. That does not mean the best. That does not mean the most talented. That does not mean the most gifted. That means that he is the greatest. He is the most accomplished, the most easily one of the most clutch. There's no argument against it. He's awesome. I'm repping the hat. Gotta rep it.
Yep,
Xavier
absolutely.
Restrepo is my guy. And something that it gets a lot of traction on Twitter, like the Broward versus Dade, like who is the most effective contributors at the University of Miami. But the greatest receiver in Miami history is a Broward kid. He started off at Monarch High School, which is where I would have gone had my family stayed here during my high school years. We moved to North Carolina. I would have gone to Monarch. And during his senior season, he transferred to Deerfield Beach High School, which is where my wife and her side of the family graduated from as well. So very cool to have a kid from Coconut Creek, where I live, where I grew up, Broward County in general, being the one for the University of Miami in terms of the receiving records.
Yeah. And, you mentioned clutch. It
He's
might
so
go.
good, dude.
Yeah, we'll see how his NFL career plays out. Because when you're going to have this discussion going forward in times in the future, it's going to be hard to overlook the NFL Hall of Famers on the list, or the guys who are borderline with Reggie Wayne, Andre Johnson, Michael Irvin, all of these incredible guys who are just household names, not just for what they did at University of Miami, but after. With Restrepo, there's an element of like maybe you just had to be there and watch it because you're right. More so than the statistics, it's like his first touchdown today off of a deflection. Like, you got to be kidding me. And that wasn't just a deflection where it popped right to him. That was like a bang bang play, extreme level of hand-eye coordination. The ball totally changed direction. He had to move his body, shift his weight, all this stuff to make that happen. Like, that is such a high level play. And he's done that repeatedly in all levels of pressure and need and circumstance throughout his career. Even just this season, I could show you at least 5 plays where he came up clutch in some weird play where he slips and falls and catches it while on his back, off of deflections. Just, he's amazing. We are so lucky to be able to watch that this year.
Yeah, and everybody wants to point to like those ones, and for every right reason to do so, but also those crazy ones where he goes up and somehow comes down with that ball, and you sit there and you go, that's a catch that most college receivers just don't complete. That's one that they just happen to drop. It is what it is. They're very difficult catches, but that's why I bring it up, because they are such difficult degrees of such high degrees of difficulty. Great to be able to make those kind of catches, and he had a great day. And I really, like I said, I don't want to be like so down. It's easy to point out all the criticisms without pointing out all of the good stuff that was done. But we were almost even with Duke today. We were almost even on third down. We were almost even on penalties and time of possession. Okay. So third down conversion rate, penalties, and time of possession, almost even, and you still win by more than 3 touchdowns. High degree of efficiency with the ball when we have it on offense. And it just goes to show you that when we have it, we are scoring points. It is streaky. Like we said, of course, you'd like to be maybe a little bit more consistent, but like 2 TDs to open the game and then 5 TDs to close the game.
Yep. Yeah. I need to find some type of sports book that will allow me for betting props on like second quarter and third quarter, and just bet the under on the Canes offense every single week. Because in the first quarter and the fourth quarter, man, we just, couldn't score more points. But it seems like we take a small nap in the middle of the game every week. But you're right, though. At the end of the day, it's going to show up as 7 touchdowns out of, I don't know how many possessions that we had, but efficiency. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's just a roller coaster watching it in real time.
Definitely is an emotional roller coaster. And as you mentioned, the touchdowns per possession ratio, that was very good. Even on the box score today, we are going to have one additional possession that ended with taking a knee. So you kind of got to take that one off. Yep. But, man, it's hard not to look at the offense and be excited. We obviously can point to the defense. What you just said about, like, being able to bet the offense in certain parts of the game, you also need to be able to bet the defense in certain parts of the game on the opposite side, right?
Yes.
Unbelievable. I do also, I'm going to say it every week because you have to, and because he doesn't fucking miss, Andres Borregales, bro. Free money. His only field goal today was a chippy, so I'll give him that. But at the same time, in the college game, those are not necessarily automatic. So even though it is a relatively short field goal in the big picture, great that he made it. And also 100% on his PATs, of which there were many today.
Yeah, 9, if my math is right, 9 points overall, 6 PATs and 1 field goal. Very impressive, accounting for just under 20% of the team's points on the day. And, Andy, great kid, amazing football player. Love having him. Yep. We just have so many great guys on this team. I want to point out another player, OJ Frederick. He's had an incredible true freshman season. Today, I think, was a highlight reel of sorts. Just an incredible day. He had a few pass breakups. He had an interception. Just a few really big, like momentum shifting plays. That he did single handedly. For an embattled secondary, the fact that we have a true freshman, like, he is just an incredible talent. I mean, he's the type of talent, in my opinion, that you watch him and you think, like, in 2 years he might be close to the top of NFL mock drafts. Like, he's special.
And he definitely has to keep it up. As long as he maintains his pace, works hard, and stays focused, he will be there. What is actually more impressive than him getting the interception today is actually the run after. Because a lot of times defensive players do not have certain instincts where they know how to kind of run and move in a certain way that's going to advance the ball a little bit further. So he ends up returning it. I don't have the number on how many yards he took it back. I want to say like 30 or 40.
Yeah. 30.
So about 30 yards on a return. That does not happen. A lot of times, if a defensive player intercepts the football, as soon as they meet any kind of disruption, they just fall down or get tackled. So very nice that he was able to instinctually kind of move through it on the return and get 30 yards on that.
Well, and I just want to point out the timing
Go.
of that interception. Coming out of halftime, they got the ball. They scored a touchdown, 28-17. We go down, we score a touchdown, get the 2-point conversion. So it's now 28-25. And then on the following possession is when Frederic intercepted the ball. Huge momentum shift. Duke could have gone down, and if they scored points, could have made it a 2-possession game again. The fact that we were able to that interception and then return, and then I think it was just like 5 or 6 plays later, we score and retake the lead. So really a huge momentum shift for that game because of OJ Frederic. Awesome interception.
Yeah, and hey, if you want to be a true freshman who gets to, play and contribute, you got to consider coming to the University of Miami. A lot of teams, preach that and say, oh, yeah, we're going to get you certain snaps or whatever. But a lot of times it's during garbage time, moments where the game is way out of hand. Either you're way ahead or way behind, whatever the case may be. Freshman recruits, if you're watching that, come to Miami, be a freshman or a sophomore, and make big time plays in these moments. I mean, look at guys such as Besaint, second year, true sophomore, Maui Noah starting, Mark Fletcher Jr. These are true sophomores, and they're getting big amounts of playing time, large amounts of playing time, a lot of snaps. So if you are a recruit and you're looking where you want to go,
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Speaking of
homegrown kid sets the all-time record. Freshmen and sophomores getting PT and still winning, covering big spreads a couple weeks in a row. What do you want me to tell you?
Yep, exactly. And you brought up Mark Fletcher. I want to talk about the run game just real quick before we wrap things up. We kind of took our foot off the gas. Well, at least just in terms of run game, we threw the ball a lot more than we ran the ball in the second half. But we actually ran the ball very well in the first half. Nice day from Damian Martinez and Mark Fletcher. I think both only got 11 carries each, which, I thought we could have. So 11 for Martinez, 12 for Fletcher. Each had about 65 yards. Fletcher had a touchdown. That's a very nice day from each of those guys in limited opportunities to carry the football. But as time goes on, I think each week our running game is getting better and better, which is going to be much needed when we start playing big-time football at the end of the year with ACC championship, playoff football, all that stuff. We're going to need a good run game. And, Mark Fletcher has been playing at a high level all season, in my opinion. But I do want to highlight Damian Martinez continuing his ramping up of his level of play. He's been great for 3 weeks now.
Yeah, and Martinez definitely seeming to find his way, and that's great. I really want to say that in the beginning of the season, it felt like we were just trying to be patient with the run game and use it to just hammer in the nail, hammer in the nail. And eventually, the defense is just going to be so beat up and tired and frustrated and sick of dealing with you running it 4 yards, 4 yards, 4 yards, 4 yards, 4 yards, that they throw their hands up and quit. And that sets up the passing game, which has helped out Cam Ward and the receivers getting their numbers up too. That said, I know some people would like to see a little bit more versatility in the running back room. They want to see carries from AJ Allen. I totally understand the place where that emotion is coming from, because when he does come in, it is electrifying. It's very big. But it just seems to me what Cristobal and Dawson are trying to do with the running back room is to create a waterfall, right? Damian Martinez, this is your bag season, bro. This is the year before you turn pro. So he's going to be the main bell cow getting the majority of the carries. And they're just trying to make sure he has a solid yard per carry and a solid touchdown ratio, right? So they're just trying to make sure that his numbers look good and use the running game as a bludgeoning tool. Fletcher is going to come in and get meaningful reps as well so that he can be that next year when it's his bag season, right? AJ Allen is in the weight room every day becoming a tank, right? And they're not burning all the tread off of the tires, right? And then AJ Allen next year will be what Mark Fletcher is this year, right? And so
Yep.
Mark Fletcher steps up into the Damian Martinez role. AJ Allen steps up into the Mark Fletcher role, and then other freshman running back recruits come in, and they will be like AJ Allen is this year. It seems like they're trying to create a reliable waterfall in the running back room and just kind of take what the defense gives you from a running standpoint.
Yep.
Because they're content to bury it up the middle and 4 yards per carry you to death. But sometimes Martinez or Fletcher, they're gonna truck somebody over, bounce outside, and then go for 20 or 25, maybe even a touchdown. But they are content to give you death by 1,000 paper cuts, 4 yards per carry, until you just quit playing football.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, it's working good. It's kind of funny. I'm excited about this team. I maybe I've become a little paranoid. I'm almost expecting a loss at some point. We talked about that before we came on, that it's like almost like the anxiety of losing our first game is gone from me because of how the last few weeks have gone. Um, but there's so many fun, exciting things. This really is the best year that we've had in quite a long time. And I'm just hoping that we can uh, best mitigate some of these weaknesses so that we can have a playoff run and kind of hang our hat on that. I think, at least from a recruiting standpoint, program building standpoint, I think it's important for Mario to be able to tell kids, like, you will get a chance to play in the playoffs here. Um, Saying that right now is kind of unfounded, right? But if we get there, you can't argue with it. It's rather than asking kids to take a leap of faith with you, you can pull out a box score and say, look, we went to the playoffs last year. If you want to play playoff football, if you want to do it in paradise, if you want to do it, with your hometown logo on the side of your helmet, then come to Miami.
And it is true. And what you mentioned about the box score is very nice. Just keep stacking wins and keep covering spreads. That's all I can really say.
Yeah.
Do you get a little anxiety during the game because you're like, man, we could be playing better right now? Of course, that's natural. That's like not, it's not unfounded, especially so many Canes fans probably have PTSD from the last 20 years. Somebody said it on Twitter. I can't remember who it is right now off the top of my head, but that first touchdown that Restrepo caught where it was off the tip drill, their response to that was, this really might be our year to really do something, because for the last 20 years that play is the kind of play that happens to us, not for us. Okay.
Yeah.
And there is something nice about it. I'm not writing any checks that the team has to cash, but to say that this isn't a successful and fun season at this point would feel incorrect.
Yeah. Agreed. I mean,
Stack wins, keep covering the spread, and go home and have a fun, nice time. You live
yeah.
in Miami. It's not like you're in some podunk nowhere town where now you go home and you sit in your dark room and there's nothing else to do. A chill night in South Florida is better than a good night in a lot of other cities. Let's just say that.
Yep. All right. Well, everyone, thank you for joining us today. Obviously, we're all happy in Kane's family today. The Hurricanes beat Duke 53-31.
Well, they win.
Absolutely. We beat our ex-head coach, Manny Diaz. That was much needed, in my opinion. Make sure you guys check out About the Fans, about the fans _ on Twitter, aboutthefans.com for all of your South Florida apparel needs. And check us out next week. Who do we have next week? Is it Wake Forest?
I think it is Wake Forest. I would have to
Okay.
recheck the schedule, but I do believe you're right.
Yep. Well, we will see you all next week back here on Twitter, on YouTube. Until then, go Canes, everyone.
Go Canes.